This is Recruiters on the Rise, and I'm Colleen Gallagher. Join me for candid conversations with talent leaders as we explore the work that drives them, the lessons they've learned, and how they're helping people find careers they love. The show is sponsored by Lavalier, an interview intelligence platform built by Textio. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Recruiters on the Rise. I'm so excited to have today's guest with us. We're going to hear some new interesting things that we haven't talked about on the show before. She is coming in here with over 30 years of recruiting experience, starting at Arthur Andersen and working her way through staffing, PE-backed companies, and high-growth tech before pivoting into entertainment marketing. She's led teams as large as 23 recruiters and has seen the TA function expand and contract in ways that most people in the industry are still trying to make sense of. She recently went through some layoffs within her company, and instead of just, moving on, she's staying to help every person that she's hired find their next opportunity. So really excited to hear more about that and share that information with folks. She currently serves as the Director of Global Talent Acquisition at the Trailer Park Group. Kathryn Knox, welcome to the show.
Hi, Colleen. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to dig in. So I like to start by asking all of my guests, what is the one thing or one action that sets the best recruiters apart from the rest?
For me, it's not about a tool or a daily schedule. It's about resilience and getting up and dusting off. And every day is a new day. That's the cool thing about any sales related job in TA is that you're as good as your last deal and you're as good as your next deal as long as you continue the momentum forward. So action creates positivity. It creates a new turn of a page, and just having that mindset of today stunk and tomorrow I'm back at it. I think it's just to be resilient in this business, whether you're agency side, corporate, it really does enable you to have the mind space to do well.
And how do you, you've built TA teams before, how do you evaluate for something like that?
Well, it's behavioral a little bit. And, even just listening in the interview or listening how people self-talk, I'm not a shrink. I'm not judging that. But the reality that there is a scrappiness in individuals when you're interviewing that you can sense. And I hate to sound airy-fairy about that. There is behavior questioning you can do. But you have to have a pretty strong sense of self or being open and willing to building that sense of self. So you can be there for your hiring managers, your candidates, and mostly for yourself, because it can be a hard business. I mean, there's ups and downs. Clearly, we're seeing a lot of that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really behavioral a lot of the times, and just learning more about people and their thought process and examples of what they do.
Yes. Yeah. You've shared that you've been in recruiting for a long time now, and so you've seen a lot of different changes in their job boards showing up, ATS showing up, and now AI. And what stays the same about what makes somebody great at this job?
Bypassing the fear of the change and embracing it. Learn everything you can. It's exciting. It's super fun. Look at AI. Look at everything it's doing right now and how people are talking about it and how people think it's going to take our job. Just embrace it, learn it, enjoy it, and continue to build your skill set. Because regardless, you're still going to have to find whatever the tool is. You're going to have to find people without it eventually. Whether there's it could not have the funds. It could be that just working on the core principles of sourcing, finding the talent out there, building the relationships. The human nuance will never be replaced, in my opinion. So yeah, just really learn, enjoy, be curious, and you'll be fine. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I obviously we are building technology that helps support recruiters and uses AI, and I still firmly believe that. And I know this phrase is completely overused, right? The human in the loop thing. So I'm not going to say it again, but I think what it does is create space for the human to just really be more present. And when you think about what we hear from people around why they take a job, obviously money is sort of this baseline thing, right? But every interview that I've done, when I ask a candidate what is going to make or break the decision for you about where you go, it's the first answer is always the people that I meet in the process.
And the first person they meet is usually us.
Right. Yes.
So having that like mind space to actually, like we talked about with your product, like listening, actually physically really listening versus worrying about note taking 24/7 or what I missed or da da da. It helps. It does help your job better.
Yeah. Now you're bringing a unique perspective. I shared in the intro. Your company recently went through a layoff, and you have been helping folks look for their next role. And you said, one of the things you shared with me, you called everyone that you had hired to ask, who had taken a job in the last few years and asked how you can help. And why was that an important thing for you?
I feel a personal responsibility because there are people that I've pulled. I mean, I'm a poacher. I love to poach. That's why and I am a leader now, but I recruit daily. Um, and so I feel as though I really did in this situation, and I believed that this company had multiple opportunities and growth and all these lovely things that we sell in what we do. And I felt like, my name's attached to it, and these are human beings that are scared and shocked. And this was something that happened within 3 weeks' time. It was a very fast kind of fall to grace, or from grace, excuse me. So I felt, they need some footing, and I'm available. I've got bandwidth right now. Why not use that time to feel good on my end, selfishly? Like, it makes me feel what I do. Also, we had a lot of knowledge as recruiters. They are now recruiters. They're hiring their hiring manager. That's great. And so if I could give them just a wee bit of insight and some comfort into how not to personalize this when, you're going to get beat up out there right now. It's a hot mess. So how do you do that? And again, that mindset, how do you handle your brain on a bad day? Just like a recruiter does, lift up, take the bad day. It's okay. Lift up. And if I can give any of that to somebody, then I've done my job. That's the other side of our job. So, and in the small world, you always want to take care of people when you keep.
Yeah, I mean, at the core of that is, what you're saying is it's a relationship, right? And we have to maintain the relationships. And I bet the thing that person is going to remember is the fact that you reached out to continue to help them, regardless of, you didn't know, right? You had good intention. And so I think just being, transparent, owning what owning how you can help, that is going to be the thing that people remember. So I love that. And, you know, I think it's very unique that you're doing that. So I think that's really great that you're taking the time to do that and helping where you can.
Selfishly, though, it brings me joy. Like seeing the light come on of like how we do what we do. And even literally right now, I'm showing them the back end of LinkedIn. This is how LinkedIn Recruiter works. This is why your headline matters, blah, 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 blah. It's just fun. It's fun. It's joy. So I even did it while I was at Trailer Park. If there was a campus kid came to me and said, I can't find a job, can you help me? I'll do it. Because again, it's something that brings me joy and I think that it's value. So
Yeah. So what are some of the tips? Obviously this is a challenging time for candidates. There's a lot going on. Um, do you have a couple pieces of advice or what are the main things that you're focused on when you're helping folks here?
I always start with more information on what's really happening, in my opinion, out there, because there's so many content creators. There's a lot of content creators are fantastic, but there's also a lot that have honestly not really recruited much in their life, transparently. And so I feel that there's a lot of fear out there, but the fear is often AI based, and AI isn't being used in ways that some people are saying it's being used. There's a lot of companies that aren't even using AI at all. And so just kind of giving them, here's what you're going to see and why, and don't buy into the fear piece that it's information, what we do with that information and how can you pivot. And so for me, that's always like my first thing. I get on that soapbox of just like, you're going to do this. It's going to take a minute, but here's how I think you should do it. And you might find a job applying tomorrow and get lucky, but they're not working like they did in the past. It's different. And no, I do try to talk to them a little bit about why, because what I love to do is I poke around on Reddit, and there's so many people crabby about recruiters and ghosting, and there's a lot to be crabby about sometimes, and that's okay. But make sure it's rooted in reality and understand what I think you and I talked about. Recruiting teams had just been gutted in the last 3 to 5 years. the bandwidth usually isn't there to go through every resume. So we get into how do you reach out really most more directly to the hiring managers? The other reason I say that is hiring managers, they know who's performing on their team and who's not. They know if they're, for recruiting and marketing as an example, if an RFP or a pitch is about to happen and we could hire 50 people in the next 6 months, they will have what's around the corner even more than I will as a recruiter or HR. So there's no harm in connections and networking. And I do emphasize that more than applies. Don't stop the applies, but get a list of 10 or 20 companies you want to work for and go at it. Build those relationships. Let them know who you are. There's zero harm in it. And then follow up and how important that is and why. And you're not bothering people. You're providing them a service because they're going to need you.
Yeah. 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 It's interesting. I totally agree with you. There's so much misinformation about what's going on. And I think it's unfortunate because every recruiter, not to make general statements, right? But I think most recruiters get into recruiting because they want to help people and they are people. And so there's no one sort of, there's no wizard behind the mask sitting there thinking like, oh, how can I, make a candidate's life miserable today? Or how can I ignore people today? I think like, the number of recs that we're asking recruiters to manage has gone up like 2x over the last few years. And so the volume is just insane. And, I was, I was talking to a recruiter recently and she said this thing and it's like stuck in my head. She said, I dread opening a new role right now because she's like, I get 1,700 applicants in the first few days. It's so clear. A lot of the resumes are, AI generated just by using the job description. She's like, I had one candidate who sent me, it's a technical role, sent me a resume one way through the application, sent another resume through LinkedIn, completely different resumes, the same person. So, I guess I bring that up just to say, like, I love your point about be more strategic and focused on like what it is you're looking for and the types of companies and start that way versus applying to 200 different organizations using AI because it's not that you're getting like it could be you're getting screened out because your resume isn't authentic, not because and there's just a sea of them. So yeah, I love that advice. And at the risk of getting a bunch of emails from people, I don't have an open role right now. I recently hired somebody. I would say like surprisingly got very few direct outreach from candidates.
And there's no downside to it. I think people are afraid. They don't want to bother you. They don't, they'll bother me because I'm TA and it's my job, but it's also your job as a leader. Don't find the best talent out there. And if you don't know about it, you can't find it. And I've got maybe 30 of you I have to serve. And, so I have always partnered well with my hiring managers. The other, you talked about action. Another action is build the relationship with your internal clients, which is your hiring managers, and partner with them and ask them about who's reaching out to them or what companies that you should be poaching off of. Know everything you can because you'll have more grace, which is important when you have an opening and it's been open 90 days and you can't fill it and whatever. But you'll also be able to partner with them in market in ways that you're not on an island. And they love it. So if I can do it, a candidate can do it. And it's just another, it's marketing. It's another channel. It's really, unfortunately, you're a product when you're in market. You've got to tell the story very quickly. You've got to have as many channels as possible to be found. And it's just another way to be found.
One of the things we had talked about too is that several years ago, we had a lot of extra, there were just a lot more employees in the recruiting stack. And in some ways, when you have that many layers, it can lead to like in any organization, right? And that's what we're seeing with a lot of companies now who are saying we overhired, we have to clean out some of the levels. And I'd love to hear how you think about that in the recruiting space and, what were some of the downsides of that?
Yeah. From a recruiting leader perspective, who sits on the ground and does the recruiting as well. I do both functions. I love an admin and another admin, and I love people sending out offer letters for me. And I mean, are you kidding me? That is a joy. A sourcer, like, and I mean, when I was coming up, sourcers weren't even necessarily a thing. We all did it. Good recruiters did it, but there was a title of sourcer. There was a, um, now a good recruiter is, granted, has to do it all. Or you might be lucky enough to have a coordinator, which would be awesome. But I mean, we were talking about one person to send the offer letter or one person to coordinate the interviews. Like it was 8 layers. That's dramatic, but of heads in a function. I saw it at my last company. We just expanded titles and functions. It was more of I did pro, but it was very heavy, high volume. That can also be confusing for the candidate. There's multiple in the process. So now, because of, unfortunately, the downturn, either in the economy or just efficiencies within AI or whatever flavor you want to call it, I mean, you have to be a generalist. You have to do it all. And if you're lucky, you have a very functional HR team that you can lean on. A lot of them have to do onboarding. A lot of them have to do everything. And so what hasn't changed, though, is that people who, in my opinion, who are scrappy and willing to do everything without risking the quality of their hire, and communicating when they can't do everything, which is equally important. But I just think, people that can wear all hats win the market we're in. But yeah, I wasn't used to that. And then for about 2 years, it was just like layer after layer. And I'm like, wow, this is a lot of spend. Be looking at that. And so, yeah, the market corrected, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. You talked about partnering with HR. Like, what are some of the best ways you see TA and sort of the HRBP talent management group working together?
That's probably going to be my biggest miss at Trailer Parker. We have such a great HRBP team. The director who's still there is fantastic. I want to know what's around the corner. I like to train my team, and I like to think myself as a forward-thinking recruiter, meaning, what are we looking for in 6 months? How is the team performing? What are the holes? What did we miss potentially in a recruiting, capacity? Was there questions? You and I have talked about those questions and how important they are. Were there questions we could have done? So really sticking at the hip with HRBP and ensuring that your new hire, because my interest is in my new hire, and ensuring that they're onboarded properly. They have a soft place to fall if things get funky, because it sometimes does. That partnership in any company I've been working through, HRBPs we've been at the hip. And I'm so grateful for that, because they are, a lot of people are hard on HR. For the most part, they want you to win. They want you to do a good job. They want you to use them when they need, help. Well, I've been really lucky. I've had some great people around me from that perspective.
And how do you think about, I saw a post recently where somebody said that TA should not own quality of hire. And I'm curious to get your take on that.
I don't think there's a downside to owning it. I do feel that there's only so much TA can control. Because, and it's almost similar to like when I had my own agency for long while. So the agency days, you have a guarantee. And the reason you have a guarantee is because there's only so much you can control after 60, 90 days. So if you have a team, one of my leaders unfortunately had 40+% turnover at one point. So if you have a team turning over like that, I don't think there's anything I could have done. Possibly, but after a while, it clearly becomes an issue of like, what's happening in that leadership? Why is that turnover happening? But I'm also someone that's always open to looking, backwards and like, how could we have done something better? Kind of a quick SWOT analysis when things aren't going well. I think that's a service to our hiring managers we should provide. And we're a team. So if there's something that is hitting in quality of hire, I wouldn't stub my nose at that conversation. I would want to it.
What are some of the metrics that you think are important that TA groups and leaders should look at?
I'm a big fan of quality of submission to offer ratio. So I want my recruiters to be subject matter experts on their opens as just possible. I don't love, spray painting resumes to a hiring manager. I want that hiring manager and that rec so well that you're going to submit maybe 3 to 5 people and you get to offer. I prefer that. Does it always happen that way? No, it depends on the hiring manager. Some want more, some will hate that. But I really do think that that for me is the quality of a recruiter. I also love a sourcing, ratio. I want you out in market. I want you out finding people. A lot of corporate recruiting is post and pray, which is fine, especially depending on the type of role that I'm on the side. We maybe almost 50% of our hires were made through sourcing. And so we're out in market. I want to know that you're telling the story, that you're helping us build the brand because it is employer branding and it's inexpensive. It doesn't cost us anything other than the tool to source with. So those are two pieces. I mean, time to fill is really important, but there's so many variables. So the other thing I have historically been on my recruiters about is documentation because data don't lie. Data don't lie. And hiring managers love to throw a poor recruiter under the bus. No offense to my hiring managers, but say like, this has been 90 days or 120 days. I'm like, yeah, but you went on vacation 4 times. You rescheduled 20,000 interviews and you weren't available. So where's your accountability in this? Let's fix it. So I'm a big advocate of us singing our song and creating raving fans, but telling the story when it's not working out and making sure that that story is documented so it protects you.
One of the things you had said to me before was that, a lot of corporate recruiters aren't bad. They're just not incentivized to build relationships. Like, what would change if they were? And how would you think about doing that?
I think it depends on the recruiter, but most recruiters are just curious people. They love people to begin with. I think understanding the business and how the business is growing, how the business operates, understanding what's under the hood of the hiring manager. I mean, that's exciting. And then what it does is it enables you to tell the story better. You can say, this is where we're at. This is why we're here. This is where we're going. That was one of my favorite things at Trailer Park Group because I love their product. I mean, they're one of the best entertainment agencies in market and have been historically, but I can tell the story of here's where things kind of went south and here's what we're doing about it. And here's the story. Good recruiter who can do that can help not only source better, but can also set that candidate up for success in the conversation with the hiring manager so they can bring some of that to the conversation of, I'm curious, where are things going? Like you and I talked about candidate questions. Better questions than to talk about your business. And those relationships, again, will give you grace. If they feel as though you care and you want to learn, they tend to be a little bit more easy on you in my experience.
Yeah. Yeah. You've talked a lot about how, like for example, with the submission to offer ratio, your preference is to, submit 3 to 5 really qualified candidates. How do you build a relationship with the hiring manager in order to get a good understanding of of what is going to resonate with them for the role, et cetera?
Yeah, you do it in the intake, which we've talked about the intake quite a bit. I do feel as though that first meeting with the hiring manager, though, if you have not worked with the hiring manager before, your job is to set expectations with them. And so you're going to know very quickly, like if I have a new hiring manager, I'm like, this is how I roll. Are we good? This is, you're going to see 3 to 5 people. You're going to love all of those people. You're going to get to offer on one of them. Are you comfortable with that? And then if I fail, let's talk about it. Then I'll say, I'll actually want you in it further if I'm failing because what's wrong. Most of them like that. And so I do tend to ask a little bit further about those things that we talked about. What's around the corner? What will this person be doing? What does success look like in the first 90 days, 6 months? What are the intangibles on your team that you're seeing that's successful with people? And I will, though, creatives are different. So I come from a tech recruiting background. I've pivoted, as you talked about, to creative. I will never have the eye of my hiring manager when it comes to a portfolio of talent. I won't. I'm pretty good. I have taste. I like to think. Maybe I don't. But, that could be debatable. But I will never. So I do sometimes, I'll float portfolios of like, this is what I'm thinking. I will test the water, but you're just getting to know them. Maybe to ask about, if you can build a relationship about what do they do for fun. And these are human beings. And just do what you can to find as much out and be okay to pivot. Because jobs, the other thing candidates also, I'm talking about candidates here, obviously, kind of pivoting on that, but candidates don't understand that job stats change constantly. And then they're like, I was a fit. What happened? They change constantly, unfortunately. One thought, maybe when you open it and you go through the process and you realize we need something totally different. So keep it communication. We do weekly meetings with our hiring managers. We do full experience meetings. Where are we going wrong? If there's a problem, if they want to use an agency, we don't use very many agencies. We have a few that we like, but why? Like, are we failing? Tell me what's happening, what's underneath it. Happy for the spend, that's fine, and happy for the help always. But really just having honest conversations and trying to be the subject matter experts on what we do.
There's a lot of, new sourcing tools coming out to help automate it. And I'm curious, given how important you think that is in developing the relationships, like where do those fit in your mind, and how do you leverage them to help?
For me, it's more top of funnel. So building the pipeline. I've used sourcing tools. There's some that I like, but my favorite thing is like a web scrape. I hate to say it. That's very old school, but I want to go on a list of Clio award winners, which is an award within our industry. We know every single person that won in 2026. I want to know who they are. I want to build relationships, but I don't have relationships. So for me, it's more strategic than just like blasting out source. But I love a good sourcing tool. I'll try anything in market, but maybe I'm old school. I'm still out there. I'm hunting and pecking every day. What I teach my candidates, I'm like, are you in marketing? Go to the FE list. Who won? Reach out. Like I've even gone on RFPs of like when I was at my last company and they needed someone that sold school cafeterias. Like, what is that? Show me an RFP. Who's the salesperson? Go from there. There's not a sourcing tool that can necessarily do that. So that's why I think it's so important for us to really know how to source in our business.
Yeah. You said we talked about this, but you started Arthur Andersen, you ran a staffing, an agency, you worked in private equity, you worked in tech, now you're in entertainment. Like, how did you end up in recruiting, and what's kept you there for so long?
So what's not on my resume is, and not everyone's going to know what this is, but I'm up in my years a bit, but I started in marketing with infomercials. And I don't know if anyone's heard of Hooked on Phonics, but it was a reading thing. I worked with the owner of the company, very young. I'm super lucky. I got an opportunity. I became like director of marketing at like 22. What is that? I mean, then I'm like, what was that? That's stupid. But anyway, so it was marketing, and I learned so much about marketing, and that company fell apart, unfortunately. And when I left, I was not going to find a job at 22 or 23 years old at that level. And I ended up just temping for a while. I moved to Dallas with a boy, like most of us do. And then went to a temp agency, and just happened. It was, God or the chair or whatever you believe. But I ran into these three amazing women it was with an agency, a tech recruiting agency. And they're like, you'd be really good at this. And it just I'm like, what is it? What do you do? What recruiter? And then I look back and I'm like, I was recruiting the whole time. I was interviewing teachers. I was like putting them on boards, and I was doing that the whole time. And then I loved technology. I'm kind of nerdy. I just thought it was so cool. So they took me to one of their companies. And then when I left Dallas, I'm being transparent. I'm not an accounting person. I did not know much about Arthur Andersen. I had no idea they were this huge, back then, one of the big eight, they were huge. Right, Lord knows. I applied, and they needed an ERP recruiter, and I'm like, I'm getting in here. I'm going to learn it very quickly. I know how to recruit. A good recruiter recruits, and I got the job. So a little sprinkling of luck and being in the right time, but I am grateful. I still think, even with the market as it is, that recruiting is one of the best jobs you can have. I'm a huge advocate of it. And you can start your own agency like I did, and you can make a huge living, or you can make a small living, or you can do it part-time. You just be an agile, cool thing to do.
Yeah. What do you think you learned about, obviously, if you have your own agency, you're an entrepreneur, right? So how do you think about that now when you are working within an organization, and where are the parallels to like how that makes you a better recruiter?
I think for me, um, you have to being in a situation of where you have to perform. Um, Corporate recruiters have to perform. I mean, please know I'm not looking down at a corporate recruiter, but when you own your own agency, you don't eat if you don't perform. And you lose a client like IBM, that's a big deal. And so being that customer centric, my team at Trailer Park Group has always been an internal agency. That's how it teams. I want to see sourcing. I want to see value. I want to see that we go to a third party, and no offense to my third party friends, we would go to a third party when we've exhausted everything from our perspective. I want to control it because my job is that spend. And if I'm spending on a third party, I'm not spending on my recruiters. So it's, but it is really customer centric. Third party agency is, you don't have the control. You have to learn how to, I mean, our company, my business partner, Debbie Ward, who's fantastic. She still runs it. She's doing Oracle consulting. The company is Alicon. She's been doing this for, 25 years. And I didn't want to continue having my own company because, it is hard and you're running all hats and we were small. But probably 85 to 87% of our clients were referrals. And that's a big number. And so, I think that if you can have that kind of relationship and people singing your praises, again, that raving fans thing, do that internally too. And it feels good.
Yeah, I love thinking about it as running your own agency within an organization because, you know, that's how you stay alive. When you're running your own company, right? Is like provide value. Hmm.
I have a third party agency and I'm in entertainment marketing and they submit me, I need a producer and they're submitting someone that's never touched entertainment and they don't have that bandwidth, or excuse me, not bandwidth, that pool. I'm not going to use them. So I trust people that they're the subject matter experts, and our hiring managers are the same thing. They're afraid that you're not going to be able to take care of them because you may have experience or maybe they just their own biases, but it feels so good to have a team that is complemented and doesn't always happen that way. Of course not. Like some people are hard. They can roll with it, but why not do it well?
All right. I love to ask people this question. If you could meet yourself a few days after graduation, what advice would you give yourself?
Other than save money, I think that it would be, this is so core to what we do, but it's core, especially to anyone, but females especially, is that you don't take on other people's stuff. Other people's opinion is not yours. You can take that information and pivot it, but just to feel, a lot of women, and I think I did, like feel like we're pieces of junk because we did something wrong or this is life. Mistakes make you. It's okay. Move on. Like shake it off. Let's go. I think that young people, especially the earlier they learn that, the happier you are.
Yeah, it's that resilience you were talking about at the beginning of around. Yeah.
Sometimes things get to me. I mean, please know, I know Buddha stuff. You can do what you can do to keep your head around it of like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. What do you like to do for fun outside of work?
I live in the mountains, so I'm above Southern California. I have trees and I had a bear last night, which is, we have them a lot right now. So I hang out with my family. We do a lot of live music. I'm a big music fan. One of the biggest things I'll miss about Trailer Park Group that I'm hoping to have in my next role is, I go to Hollywood once a month, which I love. I love LA. I really there. So we'll see shows. I have 2 children. I have a stepdaughter who is at UC Santa Cruz right now. I have a almost 15-year-old boy. He's in high school this year for the first time. And then my partner, Adam. So we just kind of hang out in the trees and cook a lot and just enjoy being here.
Sounds lovely.
It is lovely. Yeah. We'll see what the future holds, but for now it's
Well, this has been so great. I especially just love and appreciate your perspective around the parallels between like being a recruiter and being a candidate, because I do think there are a lot, there's a lot there. that probably helps candidates more so than anything, but trying to have, um, just having the empathy and understanding, I think goes a long way to make any candidates process better or recruiters process better as well. And I appreciate you being open to chatting about that.
Yeah, of course. And hopefully, again, it's what we do is not brain surgery. It's one foot in front of the other, and just be open to your ego aside and the fear and the ego aside. And making those connections, it's no different.
Yeah. Speaking of connections, where can people find you?
LinkedIn is easiest. Kathryn, Kathryn Knox, Knox. LinkedIn's the easiest way to find me, and I'll be poking around in market maybe in the next quarter or so. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm always here if I can help in any way.
Amazing. Well, thank you everyone who is listening. If you learned something today or laughed, please tell someone about this podcast. Thank you again to Kathryn for joining us. This has been another episode of Recruiters on the Rise. We will see you all next time. And that wraps up another episode. Thank you for joining. For show notes and other episodes, visit us at recruitersontherise.com. Recruiters on the Rise is sponsored by Lavalier, an interview intelligence platform. Lavalier goes beyond basic note takers to improve your ability to assess candidates with AI-powered interview questions, summaries, and transcription. With Lavalier, you can finally hire with speed and confidence.